Good morning, guys. It is January 13th, 2022. It's about 5:15 in the morning. Today we are in Genesis chapter 8, verse 13, and Genesis chapter 8, verse 14. And I'm going to read it, and then we're going to talk about it. Noah was now 601 years old. On the first day of the new year, 10.5 months after the flood began, the flood waters had dried up from the earth. Noah lifted back the covering of the boat and saw the surface of the ground drying. 2 more months went by, and at last the earth was dry. Noah and his family and these animals, from the text, have been on this boat for almost a year, maybe a little over a year. Imagine that. Imagine being on a boat. You know, we're in a pandemic right now, and due to the pandemic, in the beginning of it, we were in lockdown. We weren't able to freely go where we wanted to go. And it's still to this day, if you do have COVID or you've been extremely exposed to it, you have to stay in quarantine. To be honest with you, my daughter was diagnosed yesterday. My oldest son, was diagnosed with COVID a couple days ago. And so we're in that place. We're in that spot where we're in quarantine. We can't go out. You know, we're here. We're stuck. We can't leave. But in that there's hope. And why I say that is, at the end of this, at the end of the flood, Noah opens the covering on the boat and sees dry land. It's hard to be isolated from the world. It's hard to rely on other people to do the things you need to get done. It's hard to know that you can't walk out your door and go do whatever it is that you were planning on doing. But in that is a stillness that we shouldn't look over, a stillness of just being in a place where you know God will provide. We're in that place, me and my family right now. And I know from God's word, from God's text, there will be dry ground. Everything we're going through, there will be dry ground, and I will see the dry ground. God gives us these people's lives to help us deal with our own. There's so many moments in the Bible where people are in the midst of complete and utter chaos, and God gives them hope. God gives them a way to see that there is always hope. And that's what this text is all about. After a year and some odd days of being on this ark and watching the floodwaters rise and hearing the torrential rains and all this stuff, Noah finally sees dry land. Noah finally sees the promise that God had given him. him and his family are safe. Him and his family and all these animals are safe through the flood. Noah didn't know this in the beginning. Noah didn't know that him and his family would be able to survive. And I bet at points when he was hearing the waters and hearing the rain and all this stuff, Noah doubted and said, I don't know how this thing that I built is going to withstand what I'm hearing and what I'm feeling and all this stuff. And I wonder whether his family felt the same way. I know in the midst of what we're going through, I say, I don't know if I can withstand it. I don't know if God's promises are going to come true. And there's no doubting is not a sin. But in those doubting moments, walking out in faith, stepping out in faith, saying, I know, Lord, that you are going to fulfill this. You are going to show me dry land. I don't know when that dry land's coming. I mean, I bet Noah didn't know it was going to be a year plus being on that ark. And I don't know when cabin fever, set in and they were all like, okay, we got to get off of this boat. I don't know when that happened. But I do know that Noah kept getting rays of hope. Sending out the dove. And the dove not coming back. That shows Noah that there is vegetation that the dove can eat on its own. The hope that seeing that dry land gave him. And the hope of the ark landing on the mountain. And even the hope of the door shutting and sealing them inside. All of this is hope. Seeing the boat rise above the water. That the boat didn't sink into the flood waters, but floated on top of them. That's hope. Sometimes, me included, we look at our situation and we say, this is it. This is it. This is all that we have. This is what is going to be our fate. And that's not true at all. When we're in the midst of the chaos, and when we're in the midst of uncertainty, and when we're in the midst of whatever, we need to cling to God's promise. And God's promise is He will show us dry land. He will get us through as long as we have faith. And in that faith, people are going to question. People are going to say, well, why didn't you give up? Because my God is bigger. That's why I didn't give up. Why didn't you just curse God's name? Because my God is bigger. We think about Job. And literally, Job lost everything. Every tiny thing. And he was in the midst of chaos. He was in the midst of the flood. And he said, my God is bigger. And God restored everything to him in the end, plus some. My God is bigger than COVID. My God is bigger than anything I'm going through. And that's the thing that we've got to hold on to. Is that God is bigger than anything in the world. Anything we're facing. God is bigger. We've got to step out in faith and say, okay, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know how long I'll be in the midst of the flood, but I know you'll show me dry land. And that's what this text shows us. that even after a year, God showed Noah dry land. His promise was fulfilled. In the next group of verses that we're going to go through tomorrow, starting tomorrow, it's named, the section in the Bible, this Bible, is named Noah's Worship and God's Promise. Noah got through the flood. We will get through our flood. We will. I know it's painful. I'm not undermining at all what you are going through. I'm not undermining at all the situation you're in, because I know the struggles. But here's the promise that God has made, is that He will show you dry land. Just in the midst of all of it, turn to Him. Say, I need to know, I need to see, I need this. And He will provide it. He will provide dry land. Just be steadfast. Know that promise is coming. And know that God will do this. This is His promise. Not only to Noah, but to us. I hope you guys see Jesus in everything you do today. And I hope that you can see God's promise today. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.